Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about rescuing player characters from players. Unusual topic. All right, here we go. All right, so I'm a huge fan of Grace Randolph. I think she's brilliant. She's one of the best movie reviewers on the planet, and she said something recently. It was actually a slip of the tongue. She said something accidentally, which reminded me of college, right? And and I remembered how we handled this problem we had before. And we handled it in the absolutely wrong way in college. But now, that was in 1988. Okay? And now in 2022, I have a much better idea of how to handle this, all right? And I'm going to share it with you. So what did Grace say? Well, she was talking about movies, and she was talking specifically about Top Gun Maverick, and she was talking about how the gentleman, I can't remember his name now, I'm sorry, who actually plays Goose's son, really inhabited the role, absolutely inhabited the role of Goose's son. He looked like him, he walked like him. It was very clear that this actor had done an incredible amount of work to actually inhabit this role, right? Now, by the way, everything I'm talking about today is all players. There is no discussion here for Dungeon Masters. This is 100%. I'm a Dungeons & Dragons player. You're a Dungeons & Dragons player. Sorry. Dungeon Masters, this is not for you, okay? Go over to Dungeon Craft. He's got some great videos. Nerd Immersion, fantastic. Subscribe to both of them. They're awesome. All right, sorry if you're a Dungeon Master. This is just for the players. Okay, so she talked about him inhabiting this role. Now, we as players, we inhabit a role. But Grace made a mistake, and she said inhibiting the role. Now, she just kept going. She didn't really, she didn't even realize she had made the mistake. But she was like, he inhibited the role. And I was like, he inhibited the role? You made a mistake there. You meant to say inhabited the role. And I was like, oh my God, oh my gosh, right? And, I constantly am thinking about Dungeons & Dragons. And I was like, is there ever a time where I'm inhibiting the role of Coal Hopthorne? Coal Hopthorne. Coal Hopthorne is my Harangon rogue, right? That I'm playing in the Fallen Greenwald Camelot campaign that I'm playing with in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition right now. And Timothy is dungeon mastering that. He's doing a fantastic job with it, right? Except for one problem, but I already discussed that. All right. So, and I was like, do I ever inhibit the role of Coal Hopthorne, right? Or do I inhabit it, right? And I'm always trying to inhabit it, right? And so, and then I remembered, right? He went by the name of, so I played Dungeons & Dragons literally the minute I got to college, right? I started playing, and we had a campaign in my first semester, okay? And we had about half a dozen sessions, right? And I was a player, right? And we had this other player who had this role. He had a player character that he was playing, right? And his name was Jordan, and the player character name was Jordan Jumper, right? And I'm not going to call out the player because I don't want to embarrass him. Right? I went to Millersville University. This all happened at Millersville University. I got my degree. I have a bachelor's of political science from a bachelor's of art in political science from Millersville University. I went there from 1988 to 1992. Right, played a lot of Dungeons & Dragons while I was there, and very blessed. And and I graduated fine. I actually had a rough first year because maybe I was playing a little too much Dungeons & Dragons. But I came home with my first grades, and they were pretty bad. And my dad was like, "You get this straightened out, or you're gonna be working at Taco Bell for the rest of your life." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I don't want that." So it got fixed, right? So sorry to tell some side stories here. I'll keep it focused here. Let's keep rolling. All right. So I was like, "Am I inhabiting this role, or I'm inhibiting it?" So basically, oh yeah. So there's this player character, Jordan Jumper. Jordan Jumper was a halfling bard. Fantastic. And by the way, this was in 1988, so we were actually playing D&D 1E advanced, and we were playing, which was called Advanced Dungeons & Dragons at that time, right? And he was playing a halfling bard, right? Fantastic, and he did an amazing job. Get this, we played half a dozen sessions, right? And what the player would do is he would prepare one song for every single campaign that he would actually sing, and then if we got to do a long combat and it was taking a while to go through each, he would write another, and we would and at the next campfire he would sing out the songs. And what really blew me away was you would think there'd be just funny, fart jokes in the end. He would actually write really nice, delightful songs that were, either about what the name of the inn that we were staying at in, and sometimes they would be a little sad and mournful. And of course, by the way, this guy the player was a pianist, and we had a very robust music program at Lowersville University. And there's a little bit of a sad ending to the story. So, all right. So basically, you had this situation. So the player is playing Jordan Jumper, and we all just fell in love with Jordan Jumper, right? Which is the best character we'd have. Frankly, it's one of the best play sessions. It was about a half a dozen sessions of some of the best play I've ever seen at a Dungeons & Dragons table. So next week, session 7 comes, and the player comes in, and we're all and so we go into the inn, and we're like, hey, actually we're in the inn, and we all look over to the player, and the player is has not been saying anything, right? And so we're waiting for him to. We're in the inn, right? For him to bust out his song that he's written this week, and he's like, that dwarf that just served our mutton, I'm gonna leap off of the table and stab him through the eye with my dagger. And we're like, what? Wait, what? What? What happened? And from that point on, there was never a song sung by that bard again, right? By that halfling bard again, right? And we had a really bad session, and then everybody's like, and so I didn't talk to the dude, right? Because I don't really talk to players, right? And he has the right to run the way he wants, but there was discussion among the group, what's going on, right? And we didn't know, right? But he was not fun, and frankly, and at that point he started doing Leroy Jenkins, which wasn't even a thing back then, but you know what it is now, and he just started playing terribly, right? And he was incredibly violent with his character, and there was no role playing, and it was all gone, right? Now basically here's the way we handled it. The dungeon master this went on for about 3 more sessions, and then the dungeon master's like, we're taking a week off next week, everybody. No game next week, right? So we actually skipped 1 week of our game, and then after that we actually, it wasn't even a week. It was just our next session. We played 3 times a week, right? And then we just shifted the game and didn't tell the player and played without him, right? It was terrible. It was a terrible way to handle it, right? But I was like, hey, this is a great game. I don't really care about that player. It was nice hearing the song. Bye-bye. Because I care a lot more about D&D than I did that person at the time, right? Who really wasn't one of my, core friends. It was just a dude who was in the game, right? Who was a spectacular player, but it was just it just wasn't a thing, right? He went from inhabiting the role to inhibiting the role. All right, now let's get to the good part. What do we do if this happens today? Okay, first of all, I want to make this super clear. The reason I'm only talking to players right now is dungeon masters can't do a thing, right? They have no ability and no right to remove a player from a game, in my opinion, if the player is not attacking other player characters. This guy was attacking NPCs constantly and making it so that the strategy of the group was poor. He never attacked a player character, and frankly, he essentially just started murder hoboing, right? And so he wasn't insulting, he wasn't being unkind to any player at the table, and he was just playing his character badly, right? In my opinion, DM's got absolutely no ability, no right, no permission, right, to kick a player out for that, right? If you're just underperforming, you can't be removed from a Dungeons & Dragons game for that, right? Not by a dungeon master, but players can, right? So so here's the kicker. What happens when the players at a table have a stronger relationship, a stronger respect, a stronger love, a stronger connection to a player character than the player, right? Because this player was making it so that we weren't having fun, right? And this player was, making the game much worse, right? But we loved Jordan Jumper. We loved Jordan Jumper, right? We loved that player character he created, right? And the reality is we owed something to Jordan Jumper, but we did not owe anything to that player, right? And so we had reached a point where the player was inhibiting the role, not inhabiting the role, right? And we needed to rescue Jordan Jumper. We made a mistake of letting him move forward with that sheet, right? So, and we should not have, right? We needed that character for the game, and frankly, there was a far less developed player character that several people at the table could have picked up Jordan Jumper and allowed Jordan Jumper to live at our table, divorced, disconnected, and freed from the player, right? Now, how do we as players do that today? Okay, here's how we do it. One, none of this goes through the Dungeon Master, right? You just get together at Starbucks and say, listen, you are inhibiting the role. You are not inhabiting the role. Fix it, right? That's the conversation that happens as players, right? You're open, you're honest, done and done, right? At that point, right, the first thing that happens is the moment you need to have that conversation, okay, somebody needs to get a picture of the character sheet, right? Photo the character sheet. If they go to the bathroom, perfect time. Boop, boop, boop. Mobile, 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 mobile. Like camera, 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 right? And now you have the player character, all right? And now the rescue of the player character begins, okay, from the player, all right? Now, you give the player a chance to inhabit the role, not inhibit the role, all right? And I would give them 2 sessions. If they do not, you as the player group say, we no longer wish you to, and you do not discuss this with the Dungeon Master in any way, we no longer wish you to be at the table. We are inviting you to not show up at the next game, right? Do not discuss the fact that you're going to carry their player character forward, all right? And at that point, hopefully everything goes well. They stop showing up at the game, right? One of you can be the point person and explain to the Dungeon Master why that person is no longer going, because the player group has invited them to no longer show up, right? And then at that point, one of your players who has done the poorest job of connecting with their player character will then pick up the character and rescue that character and allow that player character to continue in the Dungeons and Dragons game, rescued from the player, okay? That, in my humble opinion, is how you handle this situation. I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.